Despite being one of the worst droughts on record, a new Equinox Center report finds most people in San Diego County used more water than they did in each of the previous 4 years. Joining me with some reasons why and recommendations to improve the region's water supply are my guest, Equinox Center Board Chairman Ray Ellis and Deputy Director of San Diego's Public Utilities Department, Marcy Steyer. And Ray, our current drought is so severe that any amount of rain we get, really, it's going to take a long time to get out of it. We're going to need a lot more just to get out of this. But your report examined water consumption rates over the last 4 years. Why do that type of analysis now?
Well, we think that if we can get this data in the hands of policymakers, the media, and consumers, that we can educate them on where we are. And at Equinox, we believe that if you measure something, then you can take corrective action to improve those numbers. And
your report is very detailed on these measurements, and you actually have this map that shows in red the highest residential water users compared to the lowest water consumers that are seen in green, and somewhere in between is residential water use in orange. Tell us more about what this data reveals to you.
Well, one of the things we did discover going through the process is that we've got to get a little better at clearly defining the various customer classes, and I think some of the information on the map needs to be taken a little bit with a grain of salt, because there could be a mixture in there of residential use and potential landscape and agricultural use, depending on what part of the county we're in. But if that's one of our key recommendations, is let's clean that up so that we've got comparable data, so we're comparing orange to orange each year.
But very clearly, Marcy, what we're seeing in this comparison is San Diego is one of the lowest average water consumer users. So in other words, using less water in the city of San Diego. So what's working in San Diego?
Well, I think we've had an established water conservation program for almost 25 years, and I think clearly it's a reflection on the commitment of city residential customers to heed the call of conserving less.
Now, the San Diego County Water Authority actually reported the region reduced its water use by 29% in December compared to the December of 2013. So let me start with you, Marcy. How much more would you like to see? We'll talk about the city of San Diego. How much more would you like to see consumers here conserve water?
Well, we are trying to heed Governor's call about reducing consumption because of this historic drought. But I think it's important to understand the December numbers are clearly a reflection on the rain that we received that month, and we're very lucky for that. And it's just easier to have lower consumption numbers when it's a wet month.
Sure, which we're not getting very many of. So let me address that same question to you, Ray. Do you think that these numbers will impact how much a consumer is really willing to conserve?
I think so, and that's one of the recommendations in the report as well, is that once we have the real clear, concise data in a consistent manner, let's communicate that messaging all the way from the state down to the local user, so that we're consistent messaging, so we don't have those situations where the consumer feels like, oh, okay, we're in a good spot now, so we can back up. This is a critical issue for our region and will be for decades to come.
Sure,
so we've got to stay after it.
Yeah, and energy companies do this, right, Marcy? So are you proposing that perhaps there's a way to get water consumers to be able to see how they're consuming water and how they compare to their neighbors?
Well, as a matter of fact, we are launching a new bill that our residential customers will see in their next billing cycle that explains just that. How are you doing this month versus how you did versus that month for last year, as well as for your neighborhood where your overall consumption is. So we think it's very visual. There's a lot of information. We think that will really help provide good information to our customers to help them out.
And Ray, this conservation, of course, is the starting point, but you also recommend some other things that this report could help with. What are those top 3 recommendations?
Well, the conservation still is number one, and that's where the low-hanging fruit is. When you look at water consumption, 50% is in the residential multifamily, and 60% of that, 60% is in that area and 50% is in landscape. So we've got to continue to plant properly and use newest technology and tracking for that, because that's the key area. But again, the messaging is very important as well.
And I understand recycling and also our water supply, but folks can see all of that on our website, kpbs.org, and we have a link to this very informative report. Ray Ellis and Marcy Steyer, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.